bonjour ciao and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome to my channel. This video is going to be slightly different to the content that I usually create because I felt like it was the right time to start delving into other aspects of medicine that are equally as important to discuss. As a doctor, your role is to look after your patient. Their well-being and their life is essentially in your hand. You can help support their lives by prescribing medication, providing surgery, and offering and suggesting advice that they can put in their own lifestyle. Sometimes these things can go wrong. The actions that doctors do that go wrong may be accidental. However, there are some cases where there is intent to harm. In this new series, I'm going to be discussing cases of medical malpractice, negligence, and so forth, to start discussing the importance of medical ethics and how things can just go wrong in medicine sometimes. This particular video is going to focus on the death of Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was born on the 29th of August in 1958. He was the 8th child in the Jackson family and born to a working class background. His father was a former boxer turned crane operator, while his mother worked part-time in a chain of department stores called Sears. Jackson had 5 brothers and 3 sisters, and alongside his elder brothers would regularly rehearse musically. They eventually went on to form a band called Jackson 5, which debuted in 1964 when Jackson was just 5 years old. This band went on to create really big, amazing hits such as I Want You Back, ABC, and Blame It on the Boogie. However, for Jackson, he wanted to pursue more. At the age of 13, he started his solo career, but it wasn't until his 5th studio album that he started and created what is now his legacy. Michael Jackson is considered to be one of the most significant cultural icons in modern history. He popularized the moonwalk, he paved the way for music videos, and his career has influenced many artists that we love and see today. However, Jackson's life was cut short when he died on the 25th of June in 2009, just at the age of 50. His death caused grief worldwide, and tributes were made all across the world. The cause of Jackson's death? Cardiac arrest, which is where your heart stops. The cause of this? An acute propofol and benzodiazepine intoxication, otherwise known as a drug overdose. How did Jackson get access to these drugs? Well, that's something that I will discuss later in this video. Propofol is a drug that causes decreased levels of consciousness, as well as a lack of memory for events. It's appropriately termed the milk of amnesia for its role in forgetfulness. The drug is given by injection through a vein and is commonly used as a general anesthetic or for procedural sedation. This drug is meant to be used in a hospital setting where patients can be closely monitored and their vital signs can be checked. Jackson had access to these drugs in his mansion home when he died, which makes you start to wonder who gave him these drugs. The side effects of propofol include an irregular heart rate called arrhythmia, low blood pressure called hypotension, and occasionally stopping from breathing. A drug this potentially harmful makes you wonder how on earth Jackson had access to it. Benzodiazepines are minor tranquilizers. They can cause sleep induction, anti-anxiety, and relaxation, which makes them useful for treating insomnia, agitation, and anxiety. This drug, if taken in overdose, can lead to deep levels of unconsciousness. Plus, if this drug is taken in combination with others, could prove to be toxic and potentially even fatal. Now, this is where I introduce a man called Dr. Conrad Murray. Murray was Jackson's private physician, and he was hired to help Jackson sleep at night. Michael Jackson was known to have insomnia for quite a length of his career. He was a busy man, he had a lot to do, and he even had to start preparing for an upcoming comeback tour. It was evident that Jackson was probably stressed and needed help to sleep at night, so Murray was hired to help Jackson sleep. Dr. Murray gave Jackson various medications to help him sleep at night, including propofol and benzodiazepines. It was said that Jackson took 8 tablets of lorazepam, which is a type of benzodiazepine. And when Dr. Murray left the room, Jackson self-administered a lethal dose of propofol, which created a perfect storm in his body that ultimately killed him. Now, how did Jackson have the ability to give himself the drug? Well, before Dr. Murray had left the room, he had already started up an intravenous line in Jackson, which meant that he could have easily given himself the drug. As a result, Murray was said to have been a direct cause of Jackson's death. Paramedics received a 911 call at 12:22 p.m. Pacific time, and they arrived at Jackson's home 3 minutes later. However, those paramedics could have arrived sooner, but Murray had delayed in calling them. This makes things a little bit more suspicious. CPR was performed on Jackson, but this was unsuccessful. Now, when it came to investigating Jackson's death, it was ruled a homicide by the Los Angeles County coroner. And that's because the drugs that Jackson had access to shouldn't have been given to him in his home. As a result, Murray was trialed for involuntary manslaughter from the 27th of September to the 7th of November in 2011. The trial consisted of up to 50 witnesses, 22 days of testimony, and 2 days of the jury discussing the final verdict. Witnesses included cardiologists, anesthesiologists, and detectives to help show that Murray's actions were negligent. One witness in particular found 17 violations that Murray did to show his negligence, or in this case, things that he had failed to do. 1, the lack of the basic emergency airway equipment. 2, the lack of the advanced emergency airway equipment. 3, the lack of suction apparatus. 4, the lack of an IV infusion pump, which is used to accurately give the dosage a person may need. 5, the lack of an alarmed pulse oximetry, which is used to measure your oxygen saturations. 6, the failure to use a blood pressure cuff. 7, the lack of an electrocardiogram, which is used to measure the electrical activity of the heart. 8, the lack of capnography, which measures carbon dioxide in respiratory air. 9, the failure to maintain a doctor-patient relationship. 10, the failure to continuously monitor the mental status of the patient. 11, the failure to continuously monitor the breathing of the patient. 12, the failure to continuously monitor blood pressure, pulse oximetry, and to have heart monitors. 13, the failure to call 911 immediately. 14, the failure to chart at the outset or the beginning of a procedure. 15, the failure to maintain written informed consent. 16, the failure to document throughout the whole course of the sedation. And 17, the failure to disclose to the paramedics and to the police department the use of propofol and what Murray had seen during Michael's arrest. Some of these violations are the basic fundamentals that doctors need to do when treating patients, and Murray had failed to do them. 17 things that Murray had done wrong. Now, all of the things that Murray had not done when it came to treating Jackson are cases where he didn't put medical ethics at the forefront of his decisions. When it comes to being a doctor, there are 4 particular pillars that need to be focused upon when it comes to deciding what is the best outcome for your patient. These are autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and justice, and I'll go through each of them in particular and highlight the aspects that Murray did that showed that he wasn't necessarily thinking of these particular elements. The first thing we have is autonomy, which is respecting the right of your patient. Jackson had requested for medication to help him sleep at night, and Murray was doing his role and provided Jackson with the stuff that he wanted. However, Murray knew the effects of propofol and how dangerous that drug could be if not used properly. So through providing Jackson with this medication, was Murray really doing his best to respect Jackson's wishes? Next up, we have beneficence, which is doing what is right for your patient and what is for their best interest. Again, Jackson had insomnia and he wanted to sleep at night. Jackson had tried previous medications that didn't work, so Murray knew there were potential other options that he could provide Jackson with to help him get what he wanted. However, through giving him access to propofol and setting up the IV line for him and leaving him knowing that Jackson really wanted those medications, was Murray really doing what he thought was right for Jackson, or was he just being negligent, or did he just have a simple mistake? The next term is non-maleficence, which means to do no harm. Murray may not have intended to cause harm, but he knew the risks of giving Jackson access to these drugs. By setting up the IV line and leaving the room, did he not think that Jackson could try and self-administer the drug himself? The lack of a pump on the IV line as well meant that giving the proper dosage would be very, very difficult, and I doubt Jackson knew how to provide that dosage correctly. So him leaving the room definitely didn't really help in Jackson's case. Murray should have known that propofol is best used in a hospital setting, So through him ignoring this, it definitely showed that he didn't really obey this pillar of medical ethics. The last term is justice, which refers to what is best for society as a whole. Now, Jackson was a great performer, he had many fans, and he knew that he was expected to perform on stage for them. However, was this necessary at the risk of potentially going against the law or doing things that weren't necessarily correct? When you think about what Murray had done, if you were a professional, a prudent professional in his position with the same qualifications as him, would you yourself have done what Murray had done? Now, this helps to influence whether or not a decision was negligent or a case of malpractice. And in this case, a lot of doctors would have said that no, I would not have offered propofol in this instance. However, other factors may have influenced Murray's decision, as it may have affected other people. One example could have been money. Murray was Jackson's private physician, so essentially he could have been paid a lot more to have looked after Jackson personally. However, it's too simple to say that that is the case because we don't know the full story. However, it's important to acknowledge other factors that may have influenced a person's decision. Are these factors necessary to have influenced the decision? Is it right for you to have been manipulated by factors such as money? All of these aspects come into mind when it comes to becoming a doctor, and it's important to be aware of all of these factors when it comes to making decisions for yourself. Now, the jury found Murray guilty of involuntary manslaughter. He was given a 4-year sentence and he lost his medical licence as a result of his criminal negligence. However, Murray didn't spend his full sentence. He was released in 2013. However, his licence is still suspended and he cannot practice as a doctor. Throughout the course of the trial, many fans would show up outside the courthouse to show their solidarity, some of them even donning the famous single white glove that Jackson sometimes used in his performances. Now, there have been posthumous allegations made against Jackson, but I won't go into detail about that. But in this video, I hope you have been made aware of the actions and the decisions that some doctors have to make throughout their career path. Some of these actions may go wrong and sometimes it's not their fault, but it's important to sort of figure out and be familiar with cases where these things do go wrong. So I hope you've learned a lot from this video, and I hope you enjoyed this sort of new style of content that I'm hoping to put out, and I hope to create more like this in the future. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.